There is something that happens to you that you have never been able to tell anyone without sounding arrogant. You get good news. Something worked out. It does not have to be big. A new job, a compliment from someone you respect, a project that finally moved, a debt you finally paid off, a photograph from a place you had never been, and then you tell someone close to you, and the temperature in the room drops half a degree. Nobody was rude to you. Nobody attacked you. Nobody said anything you could repeat later and say, "Look at what she said to me." Just the opposite. The person smiled and said something close enough to congratulations. And still, did you walk out of that conversation lighter than you walked in? No. You walked out heavier, with a strange urge to change the subject, to shrink the thing that happened, to explain that it was not really that big, that it is not a big deal, that you just got lucky. You walked out of there wanting to apologize for having done well. And the loneliest part is that there is nobody to tell. If you say, "I think that person was envious of me," you instantly become one of two things: the arrogant one who thinks the whole world revolves around him, or the paranoid one who cannot keep a friendship in peace. So you swallow it, and you find a more comfortable explanation. "I must have told it the wrong way. She was probably having a bad day. I am being too sensitive. I am looking for a problem that is not there." And life goes on. Except that the next time, you tell a little less. And the time after that, less still. Until you reach a point where you have an entire life happening and nobody knows anything about it. Because keeping it turned out to be cheaper than sharing it. This video is about that. About something old and quiet that almost never shows its real face, and that the Stoic philosophers understood so well that they cataloged it in a list, with a name, with a technical definition, and with an exact location inside the human soul. And before I begin, I need to tell you what this video is not, because this is a dangerous subject, and a video like this one, made the wrong way, does more harm than good. This video is not a catalog for diagnosing the people around you. It is not permission to cut off everybody who annoyed you this week. It is not about hiding what you have built, walking smaller, speaking quieter, playing small so nobody feels uncomfortable. And above all, one sign is not a verdict. I'm going to say that again, because it is the most important thing I will say today, and you will hear it again later. Envy is not a species of person. It is a state. It is episodic. It is something that passes through people, including good people, including people who genuinely love you, including you. The same person who felt a tightness in the chest when you shared your news on Tuesday can cry with joy for you on Saturday. Both are true at the same time. That is what being human is. So if you came here looking for a list so you can pass judgment, you are going to leave disappointed. What you are going to get is something else. You are going to understand a mechanism. And when you understand the mechanism, three things happen on their own. You stop taking personally something that was never about you. You stop explaining yourself to people who are not listening. And you stop doing the one thing in this whole story that actually ruins a life, which is making yourself smaller so everyone else stays comfortable. Let us start with the image that runs through this entire video. Hold on to it, because all 8 signs come back here. Picture an old scale, not the digital one in your bathroom. The old balance scale, the bronze one, hanging, with a pen on each side and a needle in the middle. On one pen is that person's life. On the other pen is yours. And here is the detail that explains everything. Absolutely everything you are going to hear over the next hour. The person who is envious is not looking at his own pen. He's not measuring his own life. He's measuring the distance between the 2 pens. That changes everything. Because if what hurts is the distance and not the lack, then there are 2 different ways to make the pain stop. The first is to put weight on your own pen. Work, study, start, keep going, get through the boring years, pay the price. That is the way that builds a life, and it is the slow way. It takes years, it is humiliating at the beginning, and it demands that the person admit to himself, in silence, that he is not yet who he wanted to be. The second is to take weight off your pen. And that one is instant. It costs one sentence. It costs half a second. It costs a comma at the end of a compliment. Look at the cruelty of the math. Both of them level the scale. Both give exactly the same relief in the chest of the person who is suffering. The needle in the middle goes straight either way. The difference is that one of them builds a life over 10 years, and the other one quietly erases the life of whoever chose it, also over 10 years. That is why envy attacks instead of building. It is not because envious people are evil. It is because attacking is the shorter road to the same relief. And now I have to give you the technical definition, because it is the heart of this video, and because it is going to completely change the way you look at the people who do this to you. The Stoics had a map of the human passions. It was not poetry, it was classification, almost the work of a biologist. Diogenes Laertius, who wrote the lives of the ancient philosophers, recorded that map in Book 7 of his work, in the section describing Stoic doctrine. They divided the passions into 4 large families: desire, fear, pleasure, and distress. And inside the family of distress, right next to grief, next to anguish, next to sorrow, they placed one specific passion with a name of its own. In Greek, phtonos. In Latin, invidia. The Stoic definition of envy is this: distress at another person's good. Pain felt because of the good thing that happened to someone else. Stop there. Read it again with me. Envy was not classified as malice. It was not classified as aggression, or hatred, or violence, or strength. It was classified as pain. The person who envies you is not attacking you from a position of power. He is attacking from inside a form of suffering. The person who made that sideways comment when you shared your good news was, in that exact moment, in pain. She was not feeling large. She was feeling small, and the comment was the painkiller. That does not excuse the comment. It excuses nothing. But it completely changes the size of what happened to you. You thought you had been shot. It was a groan. And there is an old image, older even than the Stoics, that closes this idea in a way I have never been able to forget since I read it. Antisthenes was a Greek philosopher, a student of Socrates, and something like the grandfather of Stoicism. He inspired the Cynics, and it was out of the Cynic line that Zeno of Citium came, the founder of the Stoic school. Diogenes Laertius records that Antisthenes said something close to this: as iron is eaten away by rust, so the envious are consumed by their own passion. Look at the precision of that, because it is surgical. Rust does not arrive from outside. Nobody throws rust at iron. Rust is born out of the iron itself, from the reaction of the iron with air and moisture. The iron produces the thing that destroys the iron. Nobody has to do anything. Nobody has to take revenge. The iron just sits there and turns to dust on its own. So hold those two images together, because they are the two halves of this video. The balance scale explains what the person does to you. The rust explains what envy does to them. And now I want to introduce you to the man who is going to walk with us here, because this subject has an owner in the history of philosophy. A man who did not write about envy from the outside, observing the phenomenon from a safe distance with a pen in his hand. He wrote from the inside. He was, in all likelihood, the most envied man in the Roman Empire. His name is Lucius Annaeus Seneca. Seneca was born in Hispania, in what is today Córdoba, in Spain, around the year 4 before Christ. He was taken to Rome as a child, studied rhetoric and philosophy, and had a talent with words that made other people uncomfortable. He wrote better than everyone, he spoke better than everyone, and in a city where the word was the main political weapon, that means he was making enemies from a young age without having to offend anybody. He became rich, absurdly rich, one of the largest private fortunes in Rome, with properties, loans, and land in the provinces. He reached the Senate. And then, in the year 41, the first thing that matters for this video happened. Seneca was accused of adultery with Julia Livilla, sister of the recently assassinated Emperor Caligula and niece of the new Emperor Claudius. Almost no serious historian believes that accusation. What historians think And what the structure of the event suggests is that it was politics. There was a power struggle inside the palace. Messalina, the wife of Claudius, wanted to destroy Julia's family, and Seneca was a brilliant and influential man on the wrong side. The accusation was the instrument. Its content was almost irrelevant, and he was condemned to exile in Corsica. Sit with that for a second, because this is where philosophy stops being preachy and starts being real. A man at his peak, wealthy, celebrated, the finest living writer in his own language, was torn out of Rome, out of the center of the world, and dropped on a rocky island with no society, no library, no audience, and no function, for 8 years. 8 years, not 8 months. We have texts he wrote from there. He wrote to his own mother, Helvia, to console her about his exile, which is a remarkable thing to do, to be at the bottom of the pit and write to comfort a person standing outside it. And he wrote another text, a much more uncomfortable one, to Polybius, an influential freedman of the emperor, a text in which he flatters, in which he grovels, in which he is clearly trying to get home. Historians love to use that text to say Seneca was a hypocrite. I prefer to say something else. Seneca was human, and his philosophy is not the record of a saint. It is the record of a man trying to stay on his feet with the tools he had. He came back from exile in the year 49, called back by Agrippina, the new wife of Claudius, with one job, to be the tutor of her son, a 12-year-old boy named Nero. And that is how Seneca arrived at the highest point a man can reach without being emperor. For years, he was the man governing from behind the emperor. The first 5 years of Nero's reign were considered good even by the Romans themselves, and Seneca's hand is all over them. Now imagine the scale of the envy around that man. A provincial from Hispania, a philosopher, a writer, who had come back from a shameful exile, was now the most powerful man in Rome after the emperor, and one of the richest. Every senator from an ancient family, every aristocrat with a traditional surname, every rival in the palace looked at him and saw a man who had no business being there. And they attacked exactly where this video is going. They said he was a hypocrite. How does a Stoic who preaches contempt for wealth hold that much money? How does a philosopher of virtue serve an emperor like that one? They said his fortune came from loan sharking in the provinces. They said he had come back from exile through a woman's bed, through Agrippina's influence. Seneca spent his entire adult life being read, admired, and wanted on one side and corroded on the other. It was living inside that he wrote on anger, which is the finest treatment of rage in all of antiquity. It was living inside that he wrote on the tranquility of the mind. It was living inside that he wrote on the firmness of the wise man, which is an entire text about why an insult cannot touch a man who does not lend it value. And it was living inside that he wrote letter 105 to Lucilius, which is, without exaggeration, a practical manual on how to survive surrounded by people who want you to fall, and the way he died proves he was not being paranoid. In 65 after Christ, a conspiracy to kill Nero was uncovered. The Pisonian conspiracy. Seneca's name came up. There is no proof he took part. It did not matter. Nero ordered him to kill himself, which is what was done with a man of his standing. Tacitus tells the scene, and it is one of the most staggering scenes in Roman history. Seneca opened the veins in his arms. Because he was old and thin, the blood came too slowly and he would not die. He opened the veins in his legs. He was still alive. He took poison. It did not work. In the end, he went into a hot bath to speed up the circulation, and he died suffocated by the steam. Through all of it, according to Tacitus, he was dictating texts to scribes and talking with his friends, asking them to stop crying. A man took hours to die, executed over an accusation he probably had no part in after spending his entire life as a target. When that man writes about envy, it is not theory. That is why he is going to come back several times across the next 8 signs. There is one more piece before I open the list. And it comes from somewhere else, from a man who was on the other side of the world and on the other side of life. Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome, 100 years after Seneca. and he had a habit of writing notes to himself, at night, alone, with no intention whatsoever of publishing them. Those notes became the book we call the Meditations. And the second book of the Meditations opens with one of the most useful paragraphs ever written about living among other human beings. He writes to himself something close to this. First thing in the morning, say to yourself, today I will meet the meddler, the ungrateful, the arrogant, the treacherous, the envious, the unsociable. He names the envious. It is there, on the list, in the morning, before the day even starts. And look at what he does with it. He does not write, therefore avoid people. He does not write, therefore cut everybody off. He does not write, therefore get even. His conclusion is that these people are like this because they cannot tell good from evil, that they are still his kin in reason and in nature, and that none of them can truly harm him because none of them can involve him in what is shameful. What he is doing there, in practice, is removing surprise from the road, because envy is not what hurts you. Surprise is. It is the "how could she" of all people. It is the "I did not expect that from him." It is the second in which your image of that person shatters and you are standing there holding the pieces with nowhere to put them. Marcus Aurelius wakes up already knowing, and because he already knows, when it happens, nothing inside him breaks. Now let us begin. There are 8 signs. They are, in order, from the most visible to the deepest, from the ones anyone notices to the one almost nobody has the courage to look at. The first 7 are about the people around you. The 8th is about you, and it is the most important of the 8. Sagi number 1, the complement with a comma at the end. This one is first because it is the most common, the lightest, and the hardest to complain about. You did something, you showed it, and the person says, "That came out great." For someone with no training, that came out really great. Wow, you deserve it. After all that time doing nothing, you deserve it. That looks beautiful. It does not even look like you made it. I am so glad it worked out, because we were all a little worried. Congratulations. Seriously, congratulations. I would not have had the nerve to do it that way, but it turned out fine. Pay attention to the engineering of those sentences, because it is always the same. The first half is true. The compliment is real. It was said out loud. It is on the record. You could repeat it to anyone and they would say, "But she complimented you. What is the problem?" The second half is the subtraction. And the subtraction never arrives as criticism. It arrives as context. Look closely. For someone with no training, it's not a criticism of your work. It is an explanation about you. After all that time doing nothing, says nothing about the result. It talks about your history. It does not even look like you made it. Does not evaluate the thing. It reclassifies the person who made it. The comma does not attack what you delivered. It attacks how big that thing gets to be in the world. And that is why you cannot complain. If you complain, you are arguing with a compliment. You instantly become the difficult one, the one who cannot take kindness, the dramatic one. And the other person does not even have to defend herself. I complimented you. I literally said it came out great. And she's right, she did. Now, the honest diagnosis. And it's not the sentence, it is what is left of you afterward. The real sign is this. You feel worse after being complimented than you felt before. That is not normal. A real compliment lifts. You take it in, your chest opens a little, and you want to go make more of that thing. After a compliment with a comma, you are left with a strange sense that you need to prove something. You start explaining. You start listing details nobody asked for. How hard it was, how long it took, who else praised it. You end up standing there defending something that was standing perfectly well on its own 2 minutes ago. And look at what just happened on the scale. You just took weight off your own pen by yourself for free. You are the one who shrank what you did. The other person only gave it a nudge. Why does this happen? Because the comma is the minimum. It is the smallest amount of weight you can shave off somebody's pen without getting caught. Nobody who feels a sting of envy wants, in that first moment, to destroy you. That is not it. She wants the distance between the pans to shrink a little so the pain stops. And a little is a comma. Epictetus has a line that settles this, and it is in Enchiridion, that short handbook compiled by one of his students, Aurelius. The idea shows up in several forms across the book, but the core is always the same. It is not things that disturb men, but their judgments about things. And he takes it straight into the case of the insult. When somebody speaks badly of you, it is not what he says that wounds you, it is your agreement with it. Translated into your case, the sentence with the comma only works if some part of you already had a doubt the same size. Test it. If someone tells you, that came out great for someone with no training, and you have 15 years of training, you find it funny. It does not land. You think, poor guy, he got confused, and you get on with your life. But if you started 8 months ago, and you spend your nights afraid of being exposed as a fraud, that exact same sentence is a needle, and it goes in deep, and it stays there for 3 days. The sentence is identical. What changes is whether there was an open door, and that is excellent news, because the door is yours. You can work on the door. You cannot work on other people's mouths. Now, what this sign is not, because this is where most people get it wrong and start wounding good people. Direct technical criticism is not a comma, it is a gift. When somebody looks at your work and says, the third paragraph is confusing, or your price is too low for what you deliver, or you spoke too fast at the beginning, that is not envy. That is a person spending time and social capital to give you something most people will not give you. Most people find it much easier to say, it looks great, and walk away. There is a structural difference between the two, and you can see it in 3 seconds. Direct criticism is about the thing, and it is specific. Third paragraph. Price. The opening. The comma is about you, and it is vague, for someone with no training. After all that time, it does not even look like you. One gives you something to fix. The other gives you something to feel. Hold on to that, because this test comes back in sign number 7, and there it matters even more. And the practice for this first sign is so simple that it sounds like nothing, but it is one of the most powerful things in this entire video. Separate the compliment from the comma, and answer only the compliment. That came out great for someone with no training. Thank you. Full stop. It is not sarcasm, it is not coldness, it is not a jab. It is just not picking up the part that does not serve you, because look at what happens if you do pick it up. If you answer, actually I have been studying this for 3 years, I took 2 courses, and so said it came out better than the professionals, you have just done 3 things. You confirmed that the sentence landed, you climbed onto the scale, and you started competing for a score the other person is never going to admit exists. You just spent 40 minutes of your day and an absurd amount of emotional energy tying a game that only you knew was being played. The flat thank you is not pride, it is economics. And here is a fine detail almost nobody notices. When you do not pick up the comma, it stays with the person who said it. The sentence goes back to her. She is left alone with it. And most of the time she does not even know why she said it. A lot of people who drop a comma feel a vague discomfort 2 minutes later and cannot name it. You do not have to do anything with that discomfort. It is not yours. Sign number 2. The systematic attribution to luck. This one runs deeper and quieter than the first, and it is, in my opinion, the single most revealing of the 7 signs that are about other people. It works like this. Every time something good happens to you, there is an explanation ready, and it never includes you. You got lucky. You caught a good moment. You knew the right people. Well, your situation is different. You do not have kids. If I had gotten that opportunity too, it worked because the market was hot. He helped you a lot, though. None of those sentences is offensive. You cannot argue with any of them. Several of them even contain a piece of truth, because luck is real, opportunity is real, timing is real, and any honest person knows they had help. But notice the word I used when I opened this sign, systematic. One comment about luck is not a sign of anything. It is actually healthy because it means the person is looking at the whole picture. The sign is the pattern. It is when, across years, not a single result of yours has ever been explained by something you did. Not once. There was always an external variable available. And when there was not one available, the person invented one. And that is when you have to ask why this person needs so badly for your result to have no author. The answer is the most important thing in this video, and it comes from Epictetus. There is a passage in the Enchiridion, section 25, that is the most violent and most healing text I know on this subject. And I need to give you the context so you can feel the weight of it. In ancient Rome, there was a social structure called the client system. Important men had clients who would go early in the morning to the patron's house, wait in the hall, pay their respects, perform services, be seen. That earned invitations, dinners, appointments, money, standing, and it was humiliating. You went to another man's door and waited to be received. So Epictetus writes, and I am going to paraphrase the passage. Someone was honored at a banquet ahead of you, or received an invitation you did not receive, or was called in to give advice and you were not. If these things are good, you should be glad that he got them. If they are bad, do not be annoyed that you did not get them. And remember, you did not do the same things he did to get them. How can a man who does not go to the important man's door receive the same as the man who goes? How can the man who does not flatter receive the same as the man who flatters? You are unjust, and you are greedy if you want to get for free what other men bought at a price. You are unjust if you want to get for free what other men bought at a price. That is the key to the whole of envy. Not just other people's envy of you, yours as well. Every advantage has a price, always, without exception. Sometimes the price is the obvious effort. The guy got up at 5 in the morning for 7 years. But very often the price is something nobody wants to look at. The price might have been risk. He quit with nothing lined up and spent 9 months afraid. The price might have been looking ridiculous. She posted bad videos for 2 years while people she knew watched. The price might have been time. 15 years on the same subject while his friends changed direction every 2. The price might have been loneliness, a new city, family far away. The price might have been, yes, flattering somebody's door, exactly like in Epictetus. And in that case, Epictetus is being brutally honest with you. You probably did not want to pay that price anyway, so stop wanting the result. And here is the mechanism of sign number 2. When somebody says you got lucky, what they are doing is erasing the price. They have to erase it, because if there is a price, somebody paid it. And if somebody paid it, they could have paid it too, and did not. And then the distance between the two pains stops being an injustice of the universe and becomes the consequence of choices, and that hurts far more than envy does. Luck is the word that converts pain into resentment. Resentment is more comfortable than regret. And here is something cruel. That same person probably knows deep down exactly what it cost you. Very often they were there. They watched you working at 2 in the morning. They watched you cry that year. They saw it. The erasing is not a lack of information. It is a need. Now I am going to tell you something nobody says about this sign, and it stings a little. Sign number 2 is the only one on this list that also happens with people who love you. A father who says, well, you got lucky. A sister. A friend of 20 years. That is not always pure envy. Sometimes it is something sadder. It is a person who did not make it, watching someone of their own blood make it, and not having the internal structure to hold what that says about their own life. It is not hatred. It is a grief with no name. That does not mean you have to accept it. It means you do not have to retaliate. Those are two enormously different things. And the practice here is one of the most transformative things I have ever watched work. Write down your price, literally, on paper, in a notes app, one time, alone, and show it to nobody. On the left side, the achievement. On the right side, The full list of what it cost. Every night, every no, every dollar that did not go somewhere else, every birthday you missed, every year you were bad at it and kept going anyway. Keep that piece of paper. Because the next time somebody says, "You got lucky," something beautiful is going to happen. There will be no open door. You will not need to respond. You will not need to prove anything. You will not need to list anything. The sentence will land and fall on the floor, because the only person on earth who holds the full inventory of the price is you, and you just read it. And look, there is one last layer here that I cannot leave out, because it is what separates this channel from cheap self-help. Luck is real. It really is. You got lucky in some things. You were born where you were born. You got the body you got. You met who you met. And some doors opened for reasons that had nothing to do with your merit. The Stoics would be the first to say so, because their entire philosophy is built on the idea that most of what happens is not up to us. The difference is not denying luck. The difference is what you do with it. The envious use luck to erase somebody else's price. The person whose soul is in order uses luck to reduce his own arrogance and keeps paying the price anyway. Same word, two opposite uses. One builds humility, the other builds rust. Sign number 3, the selective silence. This is the most confusing one of all, and is the one that takes the longest to notice, because it disguises itself as something that looks like the exact opposite. Friendship. It works like this. When you are down, this person shows up. And not in a token way. She really shows up. She calls, she asks how you are, she stays on the phone for an hour listening to you cry. She brings food. She lends you money. She says, "Count on me for whatever you need," and she means it. When you lost your job, she was there. When your relationship ended, she was there. When you got sick, when your father died, when you went broke, she was there. And she was one of the best people in your life during those months. Then you get better, and she disappears. Not dramatically. There is no fight. No door slams. She just becomes less available. The messages get shorter. It takes longer to hear back. The invitation that always came stops coming. And when you share something good, there is that 2-second pause before the "oh, nice." And then months later, you break again. Something else goes wrong in your life, and she comes back, whole, present, good. If you have never noticed this cycle, it looks like a normal friendship with its ups and downs. Once you notice it, one time, you can never unsee it. The mechanism is the scale, and it is pure arithmetic. During your crisis, the two pens are level. You are down, she is standing. The distance that used to hurt is gone. And with the pain gone, what is left is the best of that person, which is real, which is her kindness, her capacity to take care of someone. She is not faking anything in that moment. That kindness is genuine. During your climb, your pen rises again, and the pain comes back. And her body does the only thing you can do with the pain you are not allowed to name. It moves away from the source. That is why I call it selective silence and not abandonment. The person did not abandon you. She moved away from one specific thing, from your good. And that is why this sign hurts more than any of the others. Because it does not even let you hate properly. You cannot say she's a bad person, because the memory of her holding you up on the worst day of your life is real and it is right there. And you cannot say she's your friend either, because these days you already feel the chill before you say anything. Seneca has a letter that lights this up, and it is letter 9 to Lucilius, where he takes on friendship. He is working through an old question. Why does the wise man want a friend if he is sufficient unto himself? And he makes a brutal distinction between kinds of friendship. There is the friendship pursued out of usefulness, the kind where a man wants somebody nearby to take care of him when he is imprisoned or sick or poor. And there is the other one, friendship for its own sake, where a man makes a friend not so he will have someone to sit by his own sick bed, but so that he will have someone whose sick bed he can sit beside. And he says something that fits this sign exactly. A friendship that begins because of usefulness ends when the usefulness ends. Now flip that sentence. There are people who are your friend because you are useful to them. And there is a rarer, stranger kind. People who are your friend while you need them. Where the usefulness is not what you give, it is what you lack. While you are down, the relationship makes sense to her. She knows her role. She is large in that scene. She is the adult. She is the one who helps. When you get back on your feet, the role disappears, and she does not know who she is in your life without it. And here is a painful thing. Sometimes that is not even envy of what you achieved. It is fear of losing her place. The honest test for this sign is a single one, and it is simple to run. Think of one piece of good news of yours, any of them, and ask, has this person ever celebrated something good of mine without converting it into another subject? Celebrating for real is a very specific thing. It is wanting the details. It is asking how it went, how you felt, who was there, what comes next. It is a person wanting to stay inside your moment a little longer. Converting is the short answer that shifts the axis. That is great, and how is your sister doing? Or the nice, followed by a story of her own. Or the instant advice, the kind that shoves you forward into the next problem. Just watch out for the taxes now. A quick, nice, and a page turn does not mean the person hates you. Everybody has bad days. Everybody has their head somewhere else, and nobody owes you a parade. But if you walk back through 5 years of memory and cannot find one time that person stayed inside your joy, you are not looking at a friendship with ups and downs. You are looking at a friendship that only works in one direction. And here is the part that separates this video from a revenge video. What do you do with that person? You do not cut her off. Unless she is actively harming you, you do not cut her off. You reclassify her. There is a difference between expelling someone from your life and putting someone in the right place in your life. Seneca, who was the most surrounded man in Rome, did not live in a desert. He lived in Rome. He participated. He had clients, allies, correspondents, people who wanted something from him at all hours. What he did was know who was who. Reclassifying is exactly this. This person is excellent in a crisis and is not a person I share victories with. Done. That is not a moral sentence. It is a filing system. And then you stop doing the thing that was destroying you, which was telling her again, hoping that this time it would be different, and walking away hurt again, every time, for years. Because the damage of sign number 3 is not her silence. It is you carrying your joy over and over to a place where it always dies, and slowly concluding, without noticing, that maybe your joy is not worth much. Sign number 4. The perfectly timed memory of your past. This one is the most precise of them all. And precise is the right word because the timing is so perfect it is almost artistry. The scene is always similar. There are people at the table. Somebody is saying something good about you, or you have just been introduced as something impressive, or someone is talking about what you have built, and the person waits. She does not interrupt. She lets the compliment happen in full. And then, at the exact moment the compliment ends, she laughs and says, "Guys, if you had known him 10 years ago, you would not believe it. She was the most disorganized human being alive. You should have seen her apartment. This guy could not get 2 sentences out in front of 3 people. Look at him now. He was the one who owed money to everybody, and now he is giving financial advice. All of it said warmly. All of it said with a smile. All of it said as a joke. And almost always, all of it true. That is what makes this sign so hard to defend against. Because it is not a lie. You really were like that. The apartment really was a mess. You really did shake when you had to speak in public. What is being done there is not a lie about your past. It is an archiving of your present. The function of that sentence is to reinstall in the mind of everybody at that table the older version of you. the version where the pens of the scale were closer together. Because look at what happens if the new version stands unchallenged. If you are this now, and you were always capable of this, then the distance between the two of you is real and current. But if you are the one who could not speak in public and got a bit better, then the distance is an accident, a surprise, a phase, and it could shrink again at any moment. The past is the only place where she is still ahead. So she takes you there, in front of everybody. And there is a finer variation of this sign that almost nobody catches. The person who knew you before claims credit for your transformation. Remember, it was me who told you to go do that. If it were not for that conversation we had, you would not have even started. I always told him, always. Often that is not a lie either. That conversation did happen. But notice the function. If your result has her signature on it, then the pen is not unbalanced, because part of the weight on your pen is hers. Seneca wrote an entire treatise attacking this head-on. It is called On the Firmness of the Wise Man, and he wrote it for a friend, Serenus, who was outraged at the insults he saw people suffer. The thesis of that text sounds impossible on the first read. The wise man receives no injury. And the explanation is not because he is strong enough to take it. It is something much smarter. Seneca argues that an injury only exists if it is received, that an insult requires the agreement of the insulted person in order to exist as an insult. If a man calls me short and I am 5'4", he did not insult me, he described me. If a man calls me a thief and I am not one, he was wrong and the error is his. The offense only wounds the man who lends his own value to the opinion of the offender. And he gives the example that always gets me. Nobody is offended by a small child saying something absurd, because nobody appoints a child as judge of his life. Applied to sign number 4. The person is describing you 10 years ago. That does not diminish you today, unless you accept that the old version is the true one and today's is a costume. And here is the problem, and this is why this sign works so well. Part of you believes that. Most people who genuinely changed carry a permanent suspicion that the old version is the real one and the new one is a disguise that is about to fall off. It is imposter syndrome, except it is not coming from inside alone. It is being fed by people who insist on reminding you. That is why the sentence goes in so deep. It is not presenting you with new information. It is confirming your oldest fear in front of others with witnesses. What to do? First, do not correct it in the moment. I know the urge. The urge is to say, actually, I have been speaking in public for 6 years and I have taught rooms of 200 people. Do not do that. Because if you do, everybody at that table walks away with one image in their head, and the image is you defending yourself. And people defending themselves look small, even when they are right. You just acted out the old version with your own body. The best move is almost nothing. A smile, yeah, and carry on from wherever the conversation was. Do not confirm, do not deny, do not fight with the archive. Second, understand that you are not going to win this with an argument. You are not going to convince that person that you changed. She is not short on evidence. She is in pain. Evidence does not treat pain. What resolves it is time. It is the new version lasting so long that it stops needing a defense. Nobody has to prove they know how to walk. And third, and this one matters most, notice who at that table is celebrating your new version. Because every time somebody drags you back to the past, there is another person right there who says, yeah, but look where he got to, and says it with real pride, with no competition in the voice at all. That is the person you should be looking at. And most of the time you do not look, because you are too busy being wounded by somebody else's line. That is the hidden cost of all of these signs. They steal your attention. You walk away from that table remembering the bad sentence and forgetting the 8 people who were genuinely happy for you. Sign number 5, the invisible scoreboard. This one is the easiest to spot once you learn the test. And the test is a single sentence, which I want you to take from this video even if you forget everything else. People who admire you ask how. People who envy you ask how much. Let me open that up. You mention a trip you took. The person does not ask how it was, what you saw, what stayed with you, how you felt when you got there. She asks what it cost, how many days, which hotel, and then she tells you about her trip. You mention you closed the deal. She does not ask how you found the client, what you said, what worked. She asks how much it was for, and then, casually, mentions a number of her own. You mention you started training. She asks how much you lift, and mentions how much she lifts. There is never a confrontation. There is never a "I am better than you." That almost never shows up in adult life, because in adult life, open competition is considered embarrassing. What exists instead is the invisible scoreboard, a game being played in which only one of the two players knows he is on the field, and the scoreboard is always a number, because numbers compare. Now you understand why the question how is so different. Asking how is asking for the method, and asking for the method implicitly admits two things: that you have something he wants and that he is willing to walk there. That is the opposite of envy, and the ancients had a name for it too. The Greeks separated two words that we now blur together. One is phonos, the envy we have been talking about, the one the Stoics classified as a species of pain. The other is zelos, emulation, which is where our word zeal comes from. Emulation is looking at someone further ahead and feeling something warm in your chest that makes you move. It is the drive to catch up. And the ancients, including Aristotle, who wrote about it very clearly in the Rhetoric, consider emulation a noble passion, proper to people of good character, because it moves a person upward. The difference between the two is exactly the direction of the movement. Emulation looks at your pen and thinks, "I want to feel mine." Envy looks at your pen and thinks, "I want to empty his." And both of them feel, in the first instant, the exact same thing: a tightening, a discomfort. That 1 second of unease when somebody who started at the same time as you is further along, that instant is identical in both. What differs is what the person does in the 5 seconds that follow. Hold on to that, because in sign number 8 it comes back, and there it is about you. Marcus Aurelius has a short, dry note that resolves the invisible scoreboard in a way that is almost funny. He writes, more or less, "Why are you surprised that a fig tree produces figs? A doctor is not surprised when a patient has a fever. A captain is not surprised when the wind turns." What he is saying is, people do what people do. A person with that character will produce that behavior the same way a fig tree produces figs. If you are astonished every single time, the expectation problem is yours. The tree is not doing anything wrong. And he completes it in another note, where he says that the closest thing to revenge is not becoming like the man who did it to you. That is the line that saves you from the scoreboard, because the scoreboard has a trap in it. If you step in, you become a player, and stepping in is far too easy. You are in a conversation. The person mentions her number, and you feel that itch to mention yours, and you mention it, all casual, naturally, pretending it was not deliberate. And then you go home and spend the week thinking about it. When that happens, something very bad has happened to you. Your ruler left your hand. You are no longer measuring your life by what you want to build. You are measuring it against the number somebody mentioned at a bar. And now you are on the scale, on the other side. The practice for sign number 5 is elegant and simple. Answer how, even when they ask how much. How much was the contract for? It was good. Took about 4 months to close, and what worked was that I stopped sending generic proposals. You did not lie, you were not rude, you did not withhold anything that mattered. You just brought the conversation back to the ground where it is actually useful to either of you. And something interesting happens when you do this. Whoever was playing the scoreboard loses interest fast because method is useless for comparing. And whoever was genuinely admiring lights up and asks 3 more questions, and you have just discovered who is who without accusing anybody of anything. That is the pattern I want you to notice across this whole video. the best answers to envy are not defensive. They are just a different subject. You do not argue with the scale. You walk away from it. Sign number 6. The poorly hidden relief at your defeat. Now we get to the uncomfortable part of this video. You have seen this. You told somebody about something bad that happened to you, and before the sympathetic face, before the, "Oh no, that is terrible," there was something on that person's face. Half a second. A loosening. The shoulders dropping. A brightness. And then the compassion arrived, and it was genuine, and the person really was sorry, and maybe even offered to help. But that half second stayed with you, and you spent the rest of the week feeling awful for having seen it. Because it is a horrible thing to think about somebody. You kept asking yourself whether you made it up, whether you are getting bitter, whether you are becoming a suspicious person. You did not make it up. And I am going to explain exactly what that was, without turning anybody into a monster. Go back to the Stoic definition, the one I gave you at the beginning. Envy is classified as a species of pain, distress at another person's good. If envy is pain caused by your good, then the conclusion is unavoidable, and it is arithmetic. When your good decreases, that person's pain decreases with it. That half second was not malice. It was relief. It was a pain leaving. When you say you lost your job, the person who had been suffering through your rise feels at a level she does not control, the pain stop. Before any conscious thought, before any moral decision, before she has time to be a good person, her body registers it. It is over. And her body relaxes. And then, half a second later, the human part arrives. The person is startled by her own reaction, feels ashamed, and the compassion she shows next is often completely sincere. Sometimes it is even larger than it would normally be, precisely because she is ashamed of that first instant. So you saw both things, and both were true. That is the clearest proof of everything I have said so far. It is the definitive evidence that envy is not a position of strength against you. It is a suffering you cause without meaning to, just by existing. Think about how sad that is. There are people who can only rest when everyone around them is doing badly, not because they enjoy other people's suffering, because it is the only moment their internal pain shuts up. That is the rust of Antisthenes, working right in front of you. It requires no revenge. That person's life is already being eaten from the inside, and the only thing she can do about it is wait for other people to fall. Now, I have to give you the caution, because this is the easiest sign to use to commit an injustice. Poorly hidden relief is different from several other things that look like it. It is different from somebody whose head was somewhere else and reacted badly to your news. It is different from somebody who is relieved for another reason entirely. A mother can be relieved when her son gives up on moving to another country, and that is not envy, that is fear of losing her son. A business partner can be relieved when you drop a risky project, and that is not envy, that is a man afraid of going down with you. And it is different, above all, from the person who is relieved because you became human again. That last one deserves an explanation, because it is beautiful and almost nobody thinks about it. Some people pull away from you when you are doing well, not out of envy, but because your winning version looks unreachable and they feel ashamed of their own life next to you. And then, when you mention a difficulty, they relax, not because they wanted you to suffer, but because suddenly you are somebody they can talk to as an equal again. That is not envy. That is a person who feels small. And very often, you can fix it simply by being more honest about your struggles with the people you love. And here comes something I have to say, because it is the safety gate of this entire video. One sign is not a verdict. Two isolated signs are not a verdict. What is actually a sign is the pattern. It is repetition over time, with the same person, in different situations. Once is a bad day. 3 times in 3 different contexts is information. If you walk out of this video with a magnifying glass in your hand, hunting for the half second on the face of everyone you love, then I have done you enormous harm, and you will end up alone, and you will end up anxious, and you will call it wisdom. A radar that never turns off is not wisdom. It is anxiety with a nicer name. The correct use of this sign is different. It is retrospective. It is you looking back calmly and finally understanding why that one specific relationship always left you feeling strange. It is not for real-time use in your next conversation. It is for you to stop doubting your own perception about something you have felt for years. And the Stoic answer to this sign is that note from Marcus Aurelius I already quoted, which will now make complete sense. The best way to get revenge is not to become like them. Because there is an enormous risk here, and the risk is becoming a person who does exactly this, who starts taking pleasure in the fall of whoever hurt her, who starts waiting for bad news about somebody. When you do that, you climb onto the scale and become the iron that is rusting. You start organizing your peace around somebody else's failure, and on the day that person does well again, and she will do well at something, your pain comes back. You handed the control of your peace to somebody else's life. That is precisely the disease you thought you were treating. Sign number 7. The helpful saboteur. This one is the most dangerous on the list. Genuinely dangerous in the sense that it changes the trajectory of entire lives. Because the 6 before this one hurt, this one stops you. It works like this. You share a plan. Something new, still fragile, still early. The kind of thing you say out loud with a bit of fear because you do not quite believe it yourself yet. And the advice arrives. Are you sure? I saw a video saying that market is saturated. Look, do whatever you want, but my cousin tried that and it went badly. At your age, are you sure? Just be careful not to lose what you already have. I am telling you this because I love you. Somebody has to tell you the truth. It never comes as an attack. It always comes as care. And that is what makes this sign so efficient. You cannot reject it, because rejecting it would mean rejecting somebody's concern for you. And again, there is almost always some truth in there. The market may in fact be saturated. The cousin may in fact have failed. You may in fact lose. So how do you separate a person who loves you and is genuinely worried from a person who is cooling you down? There is a test, and it is foolproof. I have never seen it fail. Somebody who wants you to do well and sees a real risk gives you the risk and the road around it. Somebody who envies you gives you only the risk. Pay attention to that difference because it is everything. A person who wants good things for you and thinks your plan is risky will say, look, that market is tough, but if you are going to do it this way. Do not quit yet. Test it on weekends for 6 months and go talk to that guy who has been in it for 2 years. That is somebody worried about you. She's trying to reduce the risk, not to stop you. A person who is cooling you down will say, that market is saturated, and then stop talking and change the subject. Because the function of that information was never to inform you. It was to cool you down. Pay attention as well to what happens when you ask for more. Ask this question, which is the practice for this sign. What would you do in my position? Somebody who wants to help will think about it. Will get involved. Will propose something. May even say, I would not do it, but if I were going to, I would do it this way. The person steps into the problem with you. Somebody who is cooling you down will hand back something vague. I do not know, that is on you. Everybody knows their own life. I am not the one who has to decide. 5 seconds. That is all that question costs. And it separates the two with a precision no moral judgment can reach. There is a second layer to this sign, and it is subtler. Discouragement by dosage. It is not one sentence. It is a climate. It is the person who every time you bring up your project changes the subject, who never asks how it is going, who, when you shed a step forward, gives you a huh and keeps scrolling, who brings up your last failure right at the start of every new project. None of that is attackable. You cannot accuse somebody of having said huh. But the sum of 100 interactions like that has a real chemical effect on your head. You start telling less. Then you start doubting more. Then you start postponing. And a year later you have not done it. And you think it is because you did not want it, or because you have no discipline, or because it was not meant to be. It was none of that. you were slowly cooled down by a person who probably does not even know she did it. Epictetus comes in here in a way that solves the problem at the root. The central idea of the Enchiridion, right in the opening lines, is dividing everything that exists into two columns: things that are up to us and things that are not. In our column are our judgment, our impulse, our desire, our refusal. In the outside column are the body, reputation, offices, and everything else that is not our own doing. Notice where other people's opinions about your plans sit. They are in the outside column. They are not yours. They never were. Now notice where the decision to keep going or stop sits. It is in your column. It always was. What a helpful saboteur manages to do is get something from the outside column to command something in your column. And he manages it without ever giving an order, without ever forbidding anything, without ever doing a single thing you could point at afterward. He just stays cool, affectionately, several times. And the defense against it is not arguing with him. It is choosing who you show the seat to. One thing I want to be very clear about, because it is the difference between this channel and the pile of motivational content out there. I am not telling you to ignore everybody who disagrees and charge blindly at every plan you have. That is the idiotic version of this advice, and it destroys lives just as effectively. There are people who lost everything because they decided that whoever warned them was a small person who does not believe in dreams. The point is not to ignore criticism. The point is to know the difference between a person who wants to help you cross the river and a person who only describes the river. And there is a practical rule that settles this for life. Show fragile plans only to people who have crossed something. Anybody who has actually built something has an almost physical respect for other people's beginnings. They know beginnings are ugly, that beginnings are ridiculous, that everybody is bad in the first year. That person will give you risk and root, because that is how they got through. Somebody who has never crossed anything can only describe the water. And I will close this sign with the hardest thing of all. Sometimes the helpful saboteur is your father, your mother, your partner, somebody who loves you deeply and would die for you. Love and envy are not opposites. They live in the same chest with a frightening ease. A mother can love you more than her own life and still feel a sting when you do at 30 what she never got to do. That does not make her a bad person. It makes her a person. And most of the time she will never understand what she is feeling and will die without knowing and will go on loving you the whole time. With those people you do not cut and you do not confront. You do something simpler and sadder. You stop asking for their opinion. You keep loving them. You stay present. You keep calling on Sundays. The fragile seed just goes somewhere else. That is not coldness. That is taking care of both sides. Sign number 8. The sign that is not in them. Here is the last one. And the last one is the only one that truly matters. The 7 before this were about the people around you. I gave you a magnifying glass. I gave you tests, criteria, sentences, mechanisms. Now I am going to turn the glass around. And if you can hold on for the next few minutes without clicking away, this video will be worth more than the other 7 combined. The 8th sign is you. It is not an accusation. It is a question, and I want you to answer it for yourself, in silence, honestly, without justifying yourself, without context, without, yeah, but. Have you ever opened somebody's profile hoping to find something that was not going well? Not wishing harm, just looking, checking, seeing whether it is all really as good as it looks. And when you found a hint that maybe it is not, feeling something settle in your chest. Have you ever felt that half second of discomfort when a friend shared good news and noticed that, depending on which friend and which subject, the discomfort changes size? Have you ever heard about somebody's success and watched your mind produce an explanation in under a second? An explanation of what? Of why it does not count? Well, his father had money. Well, she's beautiful. It is different for her. Well, that whole thing is a bubble. It is going to crash. Well, I would not have done it that way. I have principles. Notice the speed at which those sentences appear. They are not conclusions. There was no reasoning, no analysis. They arrive fully formed, instantly, like an airbag. Because that is what they are. They are the airbag that prevents the impact of a much worse question, which is, why him and not me? If you answered yes to any of those questions, I have something important to tell you. That does not make you a bad person. That makes you a person. And I am going to prove it with the highest authority that exists on this subject in the history of Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius was Emperor of Rome. It is not a figure of speech to say he was the most powerful man in the known world. He had the army, the treasury, the provinces, the power of life and death. There was literally nobody above him. And he spent the second half of his life in a miserable war on the Danube frontier, in what is today Austria and Hungary, fighting Germanic peoples in campaigns that dragged on for years. Meanwhile, a devastating plague was moving through the empire, killing people everywhere, probably smallpox, brought back by troops returning from the east. He buried children. Most of the children he had died before he did. And it is in that setting, inside a tent, at night, after days of campaigning, that he writes the Meditations. And what does a man in that position write to himself? He writes reminders not to get irritated with people. He writes reminders not to care about fame. He writes reminders not to mind what is said about him. He writes more than once some version of, stop worrying about what the other man is doing and look at your own path. The most powerful man in the world needed to remind himself of that. At night, in writing, again and again, because the notes repeat, and the repetition is the proof that it was never settled. So if you feel a sting when an acquaintance posts an achievement, you are not weak. You are in the same human condition as the Emperor of Rome. The difference between you and him is not the absence of the feeling. It is what gets done with it. And here is the most useful thing I have for you in this entire video. Go back to Enchiridion 25, that passage about the price, and turn it inward. The envy you feel is a map. It is a precision instrument, and it works better than any career assessment, any advice from a friend, any meditation on purpose. Because you do not envy everything. Nobody envies everything. Notice this. You feel absolutely nothing when you learn that an acquaintance is a chess champion, or bought a rare stamp collection, or has a vibrant social life in another city. It does not bother you in the slightest. But there are 2 or 3 specific things that, when they happen to somebody else, hurt. Those 2 or 3 things are what you want and are not going after. Envy is the pain of a desire you are not honoring. It hurts exactly in the area where your life is stalled. That is why it is so precise, and that is why it is so unbearable. It is the only thing inside you still telling the truth about what you wanted. And then Epictetus comes in with the second half, which is the part that stings. You want it, but you want it without the price. The man who envies somebody's body almost always wants the body, not the 5 years. The one who envies the company wants the company, not the 3 years without a steady paycheck. The one who envies the good marriage wants the marriage, not the hard conversations that couple had that nobody ever saw. As long as you want the result without the price, you stay trapped in that awful place, suffering over other people's achievements and not building your own. It is the worst of both worlds, and it is where most people spend their entire lives. So the practice, and it is the only homework I am going to give you today, write down 3 names. 3 people whose lives, when you look at them, produce that tightening. Nobody is going to see this list. They do not have to be people close to you. It can be somebody you have never met. Next to each name, write exactly what bothers you. Not the person, the thing. It is not John. It is John's control over his own schedule. It is not Sarah. It is Sarah being treated with professional respect. And in the 3rd column, write the price. What it cost that person, as honestly as you can manage. If you do not know, write what you imagine it cost. And then you are going to look at that third column and one of two things will happen, and both of them set you free. Either you look at the price and think, I do not want to pay that, and in the second you admit that, the envy dies. It does not survive a conscious refusal. You do not envy things you have decided not to want. Or you look at the price and think, I would pay that. And then your envy has just become the most valuable thing there is, a plan. It stopped being pain and became direction. Either way, you step off the scale, and stepping off the scale is the whole thing. Now let me put the 8 together, because separately they are a list, and together they are one single thing. The complement with a comma shaves a little weight off your pen. The attribution to luck erases the price you paid, because the price implies an author. The selective silence disappears when your pen rises and returns when it drops. The memory of your past reinstalls you in the version where the pens were closer. The invisible scoreboard turns your life into a number, so it can be compared. The relief at your defeat is somebody's pain leaving as your pen comes down. The helpful saboteur keeps your pen from rising before his does. 7 completely different behaviors, with 7 different disguises, and one single function underneath all of them, leveling the scale from below. And the 8th is you noticing that you have a scale too, and that sometimes you look at it. So what do you do with all this? There are 3 moves. And none of them is revenge, because revenge is you entering the game, and whoever enters the game has already lost regardless of the score. Move 1. Get off the scale. Stoicism has an answer to this that is almost embarrassing in its simplicity. You are using the wrong ruler. The ruler of envy is comparative. It measures the distance between you and somebody else. And the problem with the comparative ruler is not that it is immoral. The problem is that it does not work. It never gives a stable result because the other pen moves on its own without your permission every day for the rest of your life. You can win today and lose tomorrow having done absolutely nothing, simply because somebody else did something. Whoever measures his life by comparison has handed control of his own mood to a variable he does not operate. That is the exact definition of voluntary slavery, and it is what the whole of Stoicism was built against. The Stoic ruler is different. It is internal, and it is vertical. The question is not, who am I ahead of? The question is, did I act rightly today? Marcus Aurelius writes several times some version of, stop wasting time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. And he writes something else that settles the scoreboard for good. Look inward. The source of the good is inside, and it can keep flowing forever if you keep digging. Notice the image. A spring. Not a competition. Not a podium. Not a ranking. A spring that comes up from inside and that nobody on the outside can shut off. Move 2. Regulate proximity instead of excommunicating. This is where the internet gets it badly wrong, and where I want to be very clear with you. The Stoic answer to difficult people is not to cut everybody off. It is not making a list of the fake ones. It is not the 30-second clip telling you to eliminate the envious from your life. The answer is dosage. Seneca writes a short letter to Lucilius that is the most modern thing I have ever read from a man 2,000 years dead. He writes about crowds. He says that whenever he mixes with the crowd, he comes home worse than he went out. That something of other people's vices sticks to him without his noticing. And he does not conclude that one should live in a desert. He concludes that you must choose who you spend time with and in what quantity. He himself went on living in Rome, in the middle of the hornet's nest, surrounded by people who wanted him ruined. He did not flee. He calibrated. In practice, calibrating means this. The person from sign 3, the one who only shows up in a crisis, stays in your life. You just stop bringing her your victories. The person from sign 4, the one who archives you in your past, still comes to your birthday. You just do not tell her your plans. The person from sign 7, the helpful saboteur, might be your mother. She stays your mother. You keep calling on Sundays, and the fragile seed goes somewhere else. That is not coldness, and it is not dishonesty. It is the most adult thing there is, accepting that people come in different sizes in different areas, and no longer demanding that everybody fit everywhere. You do not get angry at your dentist for not knowing how to fix your car. You just do not take the car there. Move 3. And this is the most important one. Do not stop rising in order to level somebody else's scale. This is the real damage of envy, and it is none of these 7 signs. It is what you do with them. Because there is something that happens to good, sensitive people, and this is the thing that actually ruins lives in this story. You start shrinking. You stop telling people. Then you stop celebrating. Then you start diminishing what you did before anybody else can diminish it for you, because that way it hurts less. Then you start apologizing for what you have built. And without noticing, you start choosing smaller goals, because smaller goals generate less noise around you. One day you look back, and your life turned out to be exactly the size of everybody else's comfort. And look at the irony. You did not do it out of generosity. You did it out of fear. Shrinking helped nobody. Nobody's life got better because yours got worse. The other pen did not rise a single millimeter because of it. All you did was put out your own light in a room that stayed dark for both of you. If there is one sentence I want you to keep from this video, it is this: you do not owe anybody a smaller version of yourself. And now I have to close with something honest, because this is where most videos on this subject lie to you. There will be a social gain when you apply this. There will be. People will treat you differently. And I am going to explain the 2 real reasons, with no mysticism. The first is that a man who does not play the scoreboard stops supplying ammunition. A large part of what feeds the envy around you is your own reaction to it. The explanations, the proof, the numbers mentioned back, the defense. When you answer thank you and move on, the game has no second player. A game without an opponent ends. The second is that serenity is far harder to attack than defensiveness. A person who does not need to prove anything is a smooth surface. There's nothing to grab. But now pay very close attention, because this is the most important thing in the entire video, and it is the reason this channel exists. If you do all of this in order to be respected, it does not work. And it is not a matter of karma. It is a logical impossibility. Because the problem with envy is that the ruler is in somebody else's hand. If you adopt Stoic serenity as a technique for winning other people's admiration, you have just handed the ruler back to them, only now with philosophical vocabulary attached. You are still on the scale. You only changed your method of climbing. The serenity that works is the one that happens when you actually stop measuring. And it cannot be faked, because the difference shows up at the first moment of pressure. A man who genuinely stopped measuring feels nothing when nobody applauds. A man who is faking waits for the applause, and when it does not come, the bitterness surfaces. Respect is a consequence. It is never the method. If it becomes the method, you did this entire video backwards. Let me come back to the 2 images from the beginning to close. The balance scale. There is a third option I did not tell you about earlier, and it is the only real way out. You do not have to fill your pan. You do not have to empty anybody else's. You can step down off the scale. It is still there. It still works. Everybody is still up there weighing themselves all day long, the whole world arguing over milligrams. You are simply not up there anymore. And from the ground, with your feet on the ground, you can start doing the one thing nobody hanging from a scale is able to do, which is walk in the rust. That man, Antisthenes, grandfather of Stoicism, saying that the envious are consumed by their own passion the way iron is eaten away by rust. That means something very specific and very practical for you. You do not have to collect anything from anyone. The person who envies you is already paying. She is paying right now, today, while you watch this. She pays every time somebody around her does well, and there are a lot of people, and it never stops. She has a whole life of small pains in which everybody, without meaning to, wounded her simply by existing. No revenge you could design comes close to that, and there is nothing here for you to do. But there is one caution, because rust eats the iron that sits still. It does not eat the iron that gets used, that gets heated, that gets worked, that moves. So the only thing you have to make sure of is that you are not the iron sitting still. It was never about them. It never was. If you made it this far, write it in the comments. And I am not asking as a favor to the channel. I am asking as a signal to yourself, because something written by your own hand carries a different weight than something you merely heard. I measure my life by my own standard. What another man has takes nothing from what is mine. And if you take only one task away from here, let it be the one from sign 8, the 3 names. What bothers you about each one and the price. Do it tonight before you sleep. Nobody has to see it. And come back in a month to check. Not to see whether you became an enlightened person who never feels anything again, because that person does not exist, and anybody promising it is selling you something. Come back to see whether the 3 names are still the same and whether any of those 3 prices has started to be paid. Marcus Aurelius wrote the same things down again and again for years inside a tent, because knowing is not enough. If it were, he would have written it once. Welcome to Shadow and Wisdom. Until the next video, walk through the shadow without fear.